Hi, this is Sue at the Lincoln Park Library. Welcome again to another episode of Artmakers Online. Today we're going to be making quill snowflakes. Quilling is an art that was popular in the Victorian times particularly, but it involves taking pieces of narrow strips of paper and rolling them up into little coils and then gluing those coils together to make different designs. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, now we're going to talk about some of the supplies that you'll need for quilling. The first thing that you'll need will be some paper strips. These come pre-cut in sort of a tablet. They're sort of glued together at both ends, and you pull them apart and use them individually. They're about 1/8 of an inch wide, and they come in various lengths and different colors. You can make your own just by cutting strips of paper out of a regular copier paper. You do want to be very consistent though as far as the width, so make sure you draw lines or something to make sure that your lines are consistent. The next thing that you're going to need is a quilling tool. Now this is a professional tool. It's got a slit in this little metal end here that you put the end of the paper in, and then it twirls around so that you can coil it pretty easily. If you don't have one of these, or if you don't want to go out and buy one, you can make your own, and there are a lot of YouTube videos that you can look at that will show you how to make them. The tool that we're going to be supplying is a very simple one. It's a Q-tip that has had one of the cotton ends cut off, and this is the kind that has a hollow plastic tube as the stem, and we've cut a slit in there. I've marked it with a little bit of magic marker there so you can see it a little bit easier, and this will work just as well as this tool. The next thing that you're going to need is a pattern. Now the patterns, you can get patterns like this or you can draw your own. We also are going to supply you with a disc that has just the concentric circles and some lines that are divided up that you can, they're just guidelines that you can create your own design with. The other thing you're going to need is a piece of wax paper. This will cover the design and protect it while you're gluing so it doesn't stick to the so your snowflake doesn't stick to the pattern. You're going to also need some pins. These will help hold your pieces in place. And these are just regular sewing pins. You'll be pinning into the corrugated cardboard that you have there. The other thing that you're going to need is some glue. You can use regular school glue, but it's a little bit thinner and it can run a little bit, and you don't want to use very much of it. The other thing that I would use instead is a tacky glue. They're a little bit thicker and they dry a little bit faster, and it'll just be a little bit easier to use. Okay, so I think the other thing you might want to get is some tape so that you can tape your wax paper to the back of your cardboard, and then you'll have some toothpicks as well, and that will help you pick up the glue and put it in the precise area. So let's get started. Okay, I'm going to show you how to use your quilling tool. Like I say, what you'll do is you'll take the end of your piece of paper. You may not want to use the whole length. This is pretty long and you're not going to be coiling the whole thing. So you can divide this probably into fourths and still have adequate sizes. I'm going to go ahead and just do that so that... And these don't have to be precise, and they don't have to be straight cuts. As a matter of fact, if it has a feathered edge like that, when you tear it, it actually glues down a little bit better. Okay, so you're going to take your tool, you're going to put the end of the paper right in that slot. And you're going to sort of hold it with your thumb for the first couple of coils, and you're just going to rotate the tool and get the coil wrapped around there fairly tight. You don't want it, real tight. It depends on what you're making. Okay, and then you would take just a tiny bit of glue with a toothpick. And the easiest way to do this is to put a little puddle of glue on a piece of wax paper or aluminum foil or something. Use the tip of the toothpick. Just dip it in there. You don't want to get very much glue. Just a little bit. I don't know if you can even see that. You're going to put it on the inside of the coil there, and then you're just going to roll it over and hold it in place until it sticks. Now with the tacky glue, that's going to happen pretty quickly. With the school glue, it's probably going to take a little bit longer, so be patient. Okay, and then you just use your fingernail and slide that off the end of your tool, and you'll have, oops, that is a tight coil. Okay, and you can use that shape. Now, if you want something a little bit larger than that, you can take your tool and use a longer piece of paper. You're going to do the same thing. You're going to insert the end of the paper into the slot and roll it. And try and keep it as even as possible on the coil. And you can see that that's quite a bit larger coil anyway. I'm actually going to release it a little bit before I glue it. You can see that very well. Hands are in the way. Again, you take just a little bit of glue. The glue is kind of drying out here too, so I might need to refresh it. You're just going to wipe that on the inside, and then you're going to wrap that around and hold it. So that it looks like that. Can you see that? Okay. That is a loose coil. Now those are, the loose coil is one of the major shapes you're going to make. If you can, try and make them as consistent as possible. They actually have rulers that have holes in them that you can put those in so that they measure out the same way. You could also use the center of a washer, or you could cut a piece out of cardboard or something to make sure that all of your coils are the same size. Now, once you make one of these, you can do a lot of different things with it. Two of the other shapes that you're probably going to be using a lot for, or at least you're going to be using in this pattern, is one is the teardrop. And what you'll do is you'll just take one end of your coil and pinch it. And that will create a teardrop shape, like that. Now, if you take that and you pinch the other side, you get what is called a marquise. And that's just, those are good for leaves or other things too. Okay, so those are a couple of the shapes that you can make with a loose coil. Some of the other shapes that you're probably going to be using will be a V, and with that you take a short piece of paper. This is about 3.5 inches maybe. You're going to pinch it in half. You're going to take your tool and to make a V, you're going to roll the coil away from the center. And you don't have to go all the way down. You just want enough to curve like that. Okay, then you do the same thing on the other side. You will curve away. Oops, get hold of that a little bit better. And then slide that off. Now you can glue those two strips together, or you can leave it open like that, but that's a V scroll. To make a heart shape, it's the same thing, except when you do your coiling, you'll coil to the inside instead of to the outside. Now this would be an open heart, and if you glue those two coils together, that's a closed heart. So there are lots of different shapes that you can make with these. You can make a C coil or an S coil, just depending on which ways you turn the paper. So we're going to start out, and we are going to make this pattern. As you can see, it uses open hearts, which would go here. It uses teardrop shapes. It uses a couple of C coils, and then it uses a marquise on the end. So we'll go through this step by step and show you how that's done. So what you want to do is gather your supplies and create the shapes that you're going to need. For this pattern, you're going to need 6 closed hearts, 6 teardrops, 12 sea scrolls, and 6 marquises. Okay, the first thing that you're going to do is prepare your pattern if you're going to be using one. Now I've taken this, this simple pattern and I have put it on a piece of cardboard. The next thing that I want to do is take my wax paper and cover that. And you put the wax paper on top, flip it over, and just take some tape. And put it on the back here. Doesn't have to be pretty, just has to be functional. Okay, so there's our pattern ready to go. Now, you'll see that I've also finished putting together my elements of my pattern. I've got the 6 closed hearts, I've got the 6 teardrops, the 6 marquises, and then the 12 sea scrolls. And you can see that these are made exactly the same way as the open heart, except that we didn't fold the thing in half. You just curl 2 ends of the paper together. Okay, the other thing that you want to have on hand are some straight pins, and then some glue, and your toothpick, and we are ready to go. Okay, so now we're ready to go. I've got my pattern all ready to go. I've attached it to the piece of cardboard, and I've wrapped it in wax paper. The wax paper, again, like I said, will keep the glue from sticking to your pattern and ruining your snowflake. I've got a little bit of glue out here on a piece of wax paper and my toothpick ready to go. I've also got some straight pins that will help hold the pieces in place. Now, if you look at the pattern here, the first part uses these closed hearts. So I've got all my pieces made. I've got my closed hearts, I've got my teardrops, I've got my marquises, and I've got my sea scrolls, excuse me. And I've got 12 of these, 6, 6, and 6. So the first thing that you'll see in the center are the closed hearts. So I'm going to take a couple of those, and I'm going to take just a little bit of glue on the end of my toothpick, and I'm going to put that on the side of one piece, and then I'm going to put those together, making sure that the points match like that. I'm just going to sort of press them together and hold them in place until the glue sticks. Now you might also want to take another toothpick and sort of press those together. The toothpicks will help you get into these little tight spaces and give you a little bit extra leverage. Okay, now I'm going to take a pin, and I'm going to pin the tips of those to the center of the pattern. Then I'm also going to take another pin, and I'm going to sort of anchor both of these pieces in place, just so that my pattern stays even and things stay where I want them to. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is take another heart, put a little bit of glue on one side, and attach that. And again, I want to make sure that the center, or that the tips of the hearts match, and that those pieces are stuck together. I might even want to use 2 toothpicks to sort of push those together like that. Okay, then I'm going to take another pin, and I'm going to anchor that piece. And then I'm going to continue all the way around with the rest of the hearts. Okay, The next thing on our pattern that we're going to be using are the teardrop shapes. And we're going to be putting the round side of the teardrop in between the two hearts, like so. So again, we're just going to take a little bit of glue. Ugh. Basically, you just want to put a little dab where it's going to touch. And then we'll place that between each of those hearts like that. That may not match up exactly with your pattern. To help reinforce that design, you can again use your pins to sort of hold things in place where you want them to be. It's not critical. The pattern will still turn out okay because you've got niches for all of these little things to fit into. The idea is that you want them to be as evenly spaced as possible. So again, we'll take the next heart, or the next teardrop, excuse me. A little bit of glue on the bottom. And put it in place, like so. And again, you can take one of these pins out of the center now because those are all glued in place. And, oops, pin it down. Okay, and again, you'll continue all the way around with the teardrop shape. Okay, our next part is using the C scrolls. And like I say, those are just a strip of paper with both ends curled towards the middle without a fold in the middle. And we're going to be using 12 of these because we're going to be using one on each side of the teardrop. So it's the same process. You're going to be taking just a little bit of glue, putting it where it's going to touch the top of the teardrop. Oops, upside down. Now, you may have on the ones that I made, usually one of the scrolls is a little bit larger than the other one, so I like to keep the larger ones at the bottom. But it's a personal preference thing. Okay, and then you want to continue doing that all the way around as well. Okay, we're ready to do the last part of the snowflake, and that's the Marquises. You're going to do the same thing that you've done before. Just put a little bit of glue on the parts that are going to be stuck together. And they fit right in that slot there like that. And again, you can put a pin in there just to sort of hold it in place and keep it where you want it to be. Now I've noticed that my glue is getting a little thick, so I might want to go ahead and replace it. There's a soft spot right there. So that's why you don't want to put too much glue out because otherwise you're just wasting it because it will become unusable after a while. Again, I can use the pins that are in the center there and just move them out. Now once this is dried, you can take it off of the board. And a good idea, if you've got some clear acrylic spray, that's a good way to help protect it. It will put a coating on it that will make it a little bit more resilient to water or any other damage that might come its way. And it makes it a little bit stiffer too because these are fairly fragile. I mean, you're working with coils of paper that aren't entirely glued together, so it's like, you know, a bunch of springs stuck together. So it just stabilizes it a little bit more. If you don't have acrylic spray. You might try hairspray. That would probably work as well, although it might yellow a little bit more after a while. Now you don't have to stick with a symmetrical shape like a snowflake. There are other things that you can make. Actually, you can make anything. You can create a shape out of a paper strip and then just fill it in with curlicues and everything else. Flowers are a very popular item to make with quilling. I've seen some really gorgeous, huge bouquets done just with little strips of paper. Animals are another thing. Anything basically that has a design. Okay, so there we go. This is our snowflake. And once it's dry, we'll take it off of there. And then you can put a piece of ribbon or string on it and hang it as a Christmas ornament, or use it as a decoration for a package. You could take the whole thing and glue it onto a Christmas card. So there are a lot of different things that you can use these for. So I hope you enjoyed making your quilt snowflake, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.